and welcome. You're tuning in to Unbreakable Hope with me, your host, Jessica Rose. This podcast is all about seeking the light. In each episode, we chat with someone who has either overcome the darkness or who is actively spreading light within their own community. So let's jump into today's episode. Today, I'm excited to be talking to a fellow Petite sister who is representing the great state of Missouri as Mrs. Missouri Petite. She was also Miss Congeniality last year at the Petite USA competition. Samantha is such an amazing person, just a true angel and sweetheart. Miss Congeniality definitely fits who she is. She is an amazing role model as a mother. She is such a caring member of her community and really making some amazing impact. So I'm excited to be diving in more to her story as to what is her platform, why is it important, and why should you care? So join us as we start this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on and having this chat with me today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you.
You too. It's great to be able to reconnect with people that you've met because we met, actually it was this year. I was going to say last year, but we met
Yeah,
this year really.
this
And we
August.
got to meet in person in Chicago. Yay.
Hey. Yeah, it was so fun, and I miss everyone. I was just so sad when it was over because I know some people will redo their titles, but some people won't. So I'm just I'm so glad you're coming back.
Yes, it's always fun getting to know people and get excited to rebuild relationships. And I wish we had more time in person together. So I'm definitely looking forward to really maximizing the time that we get to see each other in Chicago again.
Yeah, definitely. My mom, she came out and was a supporter of me during the pageant weekend, and you were actually one of the queens she asked about when I told her that I was coming back. She was just like, "Is Jessica coming back?" I think she loved your state costume. I think that's what really drew her in. And then she was just like, "She's so nice. She's so creative. I hope she's coming back." And I was like, "I will ask."
I got to meet her in the hallway and I
Yeah.
didn't realize she was your mom at the time I met her. And
Mhm.
something got said, and I forget how we started talking about how her and I are both Marines.
Yes.
So then she said, "Oh, my daughter's here." And I'm like, "Who's your daughter?" And I'm like, "This is so awesome."
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for your service. I love Marines.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with a good Marine, though I married a sailor. So
All right.
well, I'm super excited to jump in our chat. I want to give you a couple minutes, introduce yourself a little bit further, tell our listeners a little bit more about you, and we're going to be diving into some really awesome and exciting community supports and things that you've been up to as well.
Yeah. So I'm Samantha Brainerd. I am Mrs. Missouri Petite for Petite USA. I live in Missouri. I've lived here quite a long time, but growing up, my mother and father were both U.S. Marines, so grew up all over the country. It wasn't until after college when I met my husband, moved in with him, that I had my first home. And I've been in Missouri most of my life. So this is the state that I represent and have called home. So I compete in pageants. I'm also a mother to a now 4-year-old. She just turned 4, and a wife, and just trying to do as much as I can to be the best role model for them. Show my daughter that no matter what age, even though I'm married, have a family, my life isn't over yet, can still go for my dreams, still can give back to the community. My chapter isn't over.
I think that's something that a lot of women struggle with
Yeah.
because it's this idea. My mom was active duty as well, and she
Mhm.
actually ended her career early because she was supposed to go remote for a year and couldn't bear the thought of us living with either in-laws.
Right.
So she requested an early out. And to her, she gave up her career for us. And I think that's something, it's almost like she never got to finish it. But
Mhm.
I always saw my mom being the person that did everything for everyone, and she wanted to be the best mom. And I think a lot of that came from she didn't really have a mom as a positive role model growing up. So I love hearing that you're saying that, hey, I have this 4-year-old daughter that it's not just about me living out my goals, it's me showing her that it is okay and that your life isn't over just because you become a mother or whatever happens in your life, that you can still make an impact and still do things. So I think that's so beautiful. And I think that's needed. And a lot of people don't have that in their family structures.
Yeah, my mother was the same way. She didn't have the best mother growing up. She became the adult very young. when she found out she was pregnant with me in the Marines, like that kind of derailed things. I feel like if it wasn't for me, she probably would have done a full career in the military and been happy. But she definitely put her family first and she did whatever she could to provide for us as we grew up. So just trying to do the best for my daughter and get that stability and make sure she knows that she can do anything.
I think that's super important. A lot of families just having that structure, that stability of growth, because so
Yeah,
many people miss out on that, and we always want better for the generations to come after us. We're always trying to say, hey, what didn't we have that we wish we had that we could do better, so then they can continue to do better too. So I think
absolutely.
that's a beautiful story.
I remember when I was young, my mother, I asked her when she was a security officer at that time. She was a prison guard at the corrections. And I asked her, I was just like, "Do you want me to grow up and do that too?" And she's like, "No. I want you to grow up. I want you to do better than me. I want you to follow your dreams and do what you want to do." So I hope that I can give that to my daughter as well. It's just like I want her to do better than me and just continue each generation to improve.
That's very sweet. I hope that your daughter's inspired by all the amazing work you do in your community, because I know you have been such an amazing advocate for food insecurity. I see your posts online and you talking about it. And I just, I love people who are passionate about making these impacts in their community. So I would love to give you some time to talk more. Someone probably has never heard the term food insecurity before, so I'm sure you are going to break it down basic style for all of our listeners to be able to say, what is it? Who does it affect? Tell me more. Tell us more.
So, food insecurity is the lack of food, so hungry, but also the lack of nutritious food. So, if there's somebody who is very low income, all they can afford is ramen noodles, that's what they're eating every day. Yes, they're getting food, they're getting things in their belly, but that is not nutrition. That's like not going to sustain them long term. And that can like really affect our bodies and our minds over time. So food insecurity is the lack of food and the lack of nutritious food. It affects about 1 in 7 people across the United States. So the likelihood that you know somebody is high, unfortunately. And it's like a basic thing for life is food. Like we should all have access to it. There shouldn't be a reason why people are starving. Something that affected me growing up and I know has affected a lot of people. So now that I am in a place where I am stable, I have been able to provide for my family. Now it's my time to give back. Because when I was younger, there were people who gave to me. I probably wouldn't have gotten this far if it wasn't for them. So now I'm kind of paying it back by trying to raise awareness about food insecurity and just share different ways that we can help impact it.
I think that's something that my mom growing up also experienced food insecurities. So when I was growing up, my mom kind of did the opposite, where it became this necessity to have a pantry. So always had to have a stock supply. You never know, anything could happen. We could be without food in a minute. And I realized recently, probably in the past year or two, that that's been a safety blanket for me. And it's like I have to have a full pantry, whether it's the stuff I actually eat, you know, it just, I realized it was like a safety mechanism for me to be able to open the pantry and be like, there's cans, there's boxes, there's food, right?
Right.
It's this sense of relief. Though growing up, I never really felt that I didn't have access to food because my mom always kept this very stock supply, always coupon to make sure we had, 10 boxes of mac and cheese put away, in the back, those kind of things. And I think a lot of people don't notice or don't realize it. You said 1 in 7. That
Yeah.
is that is a crazy statistic. And I think it's so important for people to maybe know and ask or offer help. Is there ways that you see that you can help people to maybe try and reach that 1 in 7 without saying, hey, you look like you're insecure in your food? What are some tips that you might have?
Definitely. So I work with a lot of local food pantries, also schools, because this affects children as well. I believe it's like 1 in 6 children. Um, so just trying to see like different ways we can impact without pointing people out, because it is an insecurity. I know I had it I don't think that people in my life really knew the struggle that I was going through. Like I would go on field trips and they would be getting food and I'll be like, "Oh no, I'm not hungry," when really it was just I couldn't afford it. I was hungry. And so what I do and what I encourage other people to do is just see how they can give back by donating. Even simply things in your pantry that you already have that you know you're not going to use. Maybe you bought an extra can that you're not going to use that you can then donate to the food pantry, or just donating your time, as those food pantries, those food banks, like they have to sort it, they have to get it distributed, they have to flyer all these different things. They can use help just with your time. If you do see somebody or think somebody is suffering from this, then you can simply just invite them for food. Like invite them over for a meal, have a game night, like do something fun. It doesn't have to be like, hey, you look like you're starving, you should eat. Just like, hey, you want to come over, have some food? And that will be so beneficial for them without calling them out.
I think this ties back into what you were saying earlier too, is it's not necessarily just lack of food as well, it's lack of that nutritious food. So sometimes
Yeah.
people may think, this happens a lot in the veteran communities. Oh, other veterans have it worse off than me. Let me not take this resource because somebody else could possibly need it more than me. And I think you
Yeah.
see that a lot when it comes to food pantries. I know I've taken someone there before and said, hey, this is just temporarily. And guess what? After you get going again, you can then come back and volunteer and donate to this same food pantry. So that's a
Yeah.
great way to open up the conversation is, hey, donate, because then you're talking about these resources that are available. So maybe
Mhm.
they can't donate, but now they're hearing about the resources. And
Yeah.
also just that education piece is you may not feel like you don't have access to food, but it's that nutritious food as well. I think
Yeah.
that's a really key important part to it.
I say especially like kids and like people like growing up, like they're not getting the nutrition and then their bodies, their minds are not developing because they don't have all those nutritional elements to help their body grow. It's a horrible thing that we're going through. And I don't think that it stems from like one thing that we can impact. It's just like it's something that's going on. So we have to find different ways to help get people food that they need.
That's very true. I know Scarlett Johansson is in a commercial. She's done some interviews speaking openly about food insecurities and how certain
Yeah.
organizations helped get her to where she is. And the fact that you said about 1 in 6 kids, so
Yeah.
being able to reach them at the schools. What are some things that you do when you partner with the schools to be able to help them with food insecurity?
Yeah. So with the schools, like I remember I couldn't even afford the lunches at schools. And the teachers, the people at the schools would come to me and be like, why aren't you paying your bill? Why hasn't your parents paid your bill? And it's just like, we're trying to make sure we have power right now. And they would put it on me. And I remember like not even being able to get the school lunches. They would give me like a sandwich, like not even the trade food. And so going to schools and kind of like talking about like how can we impact this? How can we see like who has those overdue lunch balances and how they're getting paid? I found that with schools, any overdue lunch balances at the end of the year, that money is being pulled from other budgets. So budgets for new school supplies, for equipment, anything that they need is being pulled out to cover the overdue lunch balances. So that's not just impacting the few students who can't afford food, which is a big issue, but it's also affecting the other students with everything that the school needs. So we just get information about what those numbers look like, try to spread it out across the community, just share the link, share flyers on how people can just donate to the school. Some schools have food pantries, but others will just accept money donations to go towards those overdue lunch balances. So I've been just partnering with schools with trying to raise money to help impact those bills.
You brought up specifically the word insecurity in the food insecurity piece is that people aren't just saying, hey, it's me. Hey, I'm struggling, right?
Yeah,
And that ties into what you were just saying at schools too, is I remember with my son's school is yes, if you had an overdue balance, it was like, here's a ham and cheese sandwich. So
yeah,
now you're going to sit at a table. with all of your friends
Hmm.
in a very vulnerable time in your life and unwrapping this ham and cheese sandwich while they have all these hot fooded trays. So that ties into now we're dealing with insecurities, we're dealing with self confidence, we're dealing
Yeah.
with a whole nother layer of things. So I think that's such a cool concept is saying, hey, how much do you need at the end of the year? How much is short? And can we as a community all pitch in to help
Yeah.
with this? Because it's a community problem, right?
Yeah, it's so many layers to that because there was the kids who had the trade lunches. There's also the a la carte options where kids who had more money could go buy special things. There's vending machines in schools. I can't stand vending machines because I would be so hungry. The food is right there and I can't get to it.
Mm.
So there's just like so many levels that people don't understand. It's not just like, yes, I'm hungry. And I'm sure everyone's been hangry, so they can understand that pain. But imagine not being able to do anything about it and all of the things that follow that with peer pressure, with society, like all the things that it's going to affect. If they're in sports, will they have the energy to get through a practice? Like there's so many things that it affects and it trickles down to affect other people around them as well.
Yeah, like you shared earlier, the brain development alone. So that's where my research is a specialty in. And if you're not getting proper nutrition, you brought up a great example, hangry. We all
Yeah.
get hangry. Here's a Snickers bars. Or what is that? The Snickers bars are like $2 in a vending machine. So even with that food staring right in your face that you're like, "Oh, I could really take a snack that isn't the most nutritious for us and also extremely expensive."
Yeah.
That's that's a good point too. I know vending machines have always been a an issue because of what they
Yeah.
even provide, not just like the cost, but what they
That's
even provide.
never anything healthy, it seems like.
Yeah, here's some powdered donuts that may or may not have been in here for 6 months. I'm just throwing
Yeah.
them out there because who wants to pay $5 for powdered donuts in a vending machine?
Like the vending machines at work, they're always filled with like energy drinks and those like coffees to go. I'm just like, where's like the water? Where's like the healthier options?
I
Yeah.
feel that all the time. I can't have carbonated drinks, and I'll go to a vending machine like, what? Why is there no water in here? Why is this so difficult? Why like access to water should not be this difficult. But I mean that goes into like a whole nother thing, right? Is as part of food insecurity, water access, I'm sure, is a huge thing. Having quality water. I know in
Yeah.
Oklahoma we've had a few cities that the water was too toxic to drink.
Wow.
So that's another layer of not having proper hydration and then that proper nutrition piece as well. Is that something that you see a lot in the communities you help? I'm not sure what the environment is like where you're at, if the water insecurity is also an issue.
I don't think the water has been an issue. It's more so like food, access to food with infants, with children. The
Mhm.
mortality rate due to hunger and nutrition have been high, unfortunately. It's not the number one reason, but it is one of the top reasons for child mortality. So I think that's a big issue as well. Like we work so hard to bring children into this world to lose them is not okay. And it's not just something, food insecurity isn't just something that affects Missouri. It's all across the country. That 1 in 7 is across the entire country.
Yeah, each community looks a little different, but those numbers are also staggering, right? In Oklahoma, I always joke we're the top 10 for all the shitty stuff. And that's sad to think that your child mortality rates are high in Missouri. And again, like you said, it's all over the US. We have communities all over the place, states all over the place, but we're losing lives because we don't have access to adequate food. And
Yeah,
that is something that is just when you think about first world probs, when people say stuff like that,
yeah,
I think about how much money we spend on upkeep of our lawn.
right.
Is people not being able to access food, it's almost something that makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah. It's just like not an issue that should be happening, yet it is. And I don't think there's just like one factor or one person you could be like, oh, this is their fault. This is the reason why this is happening. Let's just get rid of this. Like, there's just so many things that is affecting this. So the only thing we can do is help people, try to donate where we can, whether it's money, items, time. Like, that's all we can do. I don't know if anybody else any other ideas. Like, I want to help. I just know like the supply and demand is there. I just don't know how to I don't know how to impact it further than that. Just try to do as much as I can with what I know, and as we go along, I hope that we get more ideas and more people behind it to help impact it more.
It's definitely a community health problem, a public health problem. But
Yeah,
like you said, is sometimes we can't necessarily fix the problem because there's a lot of factors going into the problem. But what are some things that we can do to try and alleviate the outcomes of the problem? So the problem is people don't have the ability to access the food or the finances to access the food. So what we can do is our time, our money, straight donations, and it's I say it's easy. One of the resources that people can call 211 and ask for the local food pantry, and you can find out where's the one closest to your house where you can maybe go clean out your pantry. Or when you're
definitely.
grocery shopping, if you're $20 under your budget, maybe you can get an extra $20 and then donate that to your pantry on your way home or something along those lines. I think we're still moving in a direction that is positive. We're finding ways to be able to help people who are impacted while we're working towards all these different dynamics that affect this public health problem.
Definitely. I feel like it's kind of like world peace. Like, we can't just say like I want to solve world peace, but you start by you yourself being nice to others, giving back to others. So it's kind of like that. You just have to yourself try to help as much as you can.
Yes, we are the change. Every day with everything that we do, we can make that impact. And I love that you made that reference, especially because we met through pageantry, and
Yeah.
I am excited to talk a little bit more about what are you looking forward in pageantry, and obviously, if people haven't got this far, food insecurity is your platform,
Yeah.
but what has being in pageantry helped impact your platform, and what are pieces of it that you're most excited about to be able to raise more awareness?
Yeah. So I got into pageantry when I was little, a little bit. I got to do it a couple of years with a different pageant system, but then had to quit because money. It was too expensive, understandably. But I even remember then, like, I got my pageant dresses from a garage sale for $1. So growing up, Petite USA was the first pageant as an adult, first time getting back into pageants after many, many years. And I did it mainly to show my daughter and show others that just because like I'm married, I have kids, like my life isn't over. Like, I could still go after my dreams, still make an impact. And I volunteer myself already. So I loved that part of the pageant is having a platform, having service hours. Last year, I got the bronze for the Presidential Service Award. So this year, I'm hoping to make it all the way to gold. So just getting more service hours throughout this year to go towards that. That's one of my goals. And then I chose food insecurity because it did impact me when I was younger. So to be able to use pageants to elevate that platform is amazing. I would go to food pantries or just other events as just myself, and I would just be there, make a difference. But whenever you have that crown and sash on, it gets people's interest. They'll come over, they'll be like, what are you doing? What's going on here? Oh, you have somebody here who's representing your state. Like, what's going on? And it brings more people in. So, pageantry was just another way that I could help make a bigger impact and help spread more awareness. Like, I get to talk to you, get to talk to all the people who's watching this versus just being somebody that people would probably pass by at the food bank and not even talk to. Like, I get to have this platform to talk more and share these links, share this info with people. So pageantry is just made it go up a whole nother level.
It's dual purpose, and that's so awesome. I 100% agree with you. I didn't do pageants when I was a kid, so not that part, but the crown and sash mean more. And the part about pageantry is there's always this big joke. I'm always in heels. I'm always in dresses and heels. Everyone knows that about me. I'm literally transferring my husband and I got dress and heels on. Or people are like, "How are you doing it?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can. I'm a Marine. I still know how to kill people, but also I can look
Yeah,
pretty well doing it." So I like that aspect of the pageant is, hey, I can still be pretty and make an impact in my community. It's the
definitely.
community service piece. It's the giving back. It's having this crown and sash doesn't change who I am, but what it does is it changes people's perception and
Yeah.
people, like you said, raise, oh, hey, you're in a crown and sash. What does this mean? What are you competing in? And it
Hmm.
piques people's interest to care about things that are really important within our communities. So
Definitely.
I think that's a really cool thing to do. And I'm sure you were going to get gold this year.
I hope so. We're
I
going. We're getting there.
I didn't join the petite system. I got in kind of late, so I got in like April, and I don't think I really even knew about tracking volunteer hours, and I misread it. So I was like, "Oh, this doesn't even start till June anyway," and found
I
out,
started
oh,
mine in
okay.
January last year. I was just like, it's for 2024, so I'll start in January. No, I've started like August. As soon as that pageant was over, I'm like, all these hours are going towards next year because it goes from August to, I guess, July of next year. So that would be the year versus January to July.
Well, we're gonna have our golds together because I am so excited about this year and being able to raise more awareness, to bring more hope to people, and being able to also share all the amazing things that the rest of us are doing. I think it's so exciting. It's so exciting to meet more women doing amazing impact in their communities and wanting to shine light on it, maybe while covered in sequins and glitter.
Yeah. No, they're definitely not just pretty faces here to get a crown. They're here making impacts in their communities. Like they go through a whole process, whether it's pageant or it's interviewing, things like that, to get the crown and sash to begin with. And it's people making differences in their communities, making a real impact. So I love that we can still do it while looking good, but they're really amazing women that we meet through this.
What does your daughter think? Is this something that maybe she's interested in and trying to compete in a pageant since she sees you up there?
I think so. Like last year, she came and I made sure I got her own gowns so that when she saw mommy upstage in her evening gown, she didn't feel left out. So I think it would be something that she'd be interested in the future. I just want to make sure that she's old enough to make that decision for herself. If she wants to do it, I am fully behind her. I will be there cheering for her. But if it's not something, then that's okay too. I feel like with my family, it's kind of generational like hopscotch. Like one's like really girly. My mom was a tomboy, did nothing to do with pageants. And then I'm really girly, so I'm like really interested. I'd be happy if she turned out like me, but I'd also be happy if she turned out like my mom. Like we'll see what she wants to do.
My mom jokes about that with me. Her mom was very purses and lipstick and jewelry, and my mom was very tomboy. She raised her brothers growing up. So
Mm,
when it came time for me and me wanting to wear dresses, and she's like, "Oh, you're like your
yeah.
grandmother. It skips a generation."
Yeah, I think it does.
Your daughter was so adorable in her dresses.
Yeah.
I loved getting to see her. And
Yeah.
I love what you said there too, right? Is hey, if she wants to do this, awesome, but I want her to want it for her and make that
Definitely.
decision. And if not, okay, but that's another reason you're doing it, right? Is to say, "Hey, I'm doing this because I want to do it and I'm able to do it." So if you want to do whatever you want to do, you can do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever her dreams are, like I want her to go after them and I'll support her with whatever it is.
So, a few of us who have had chats leading up until this one with you have all been step parents.
Oh.
And I've asked everyone if they had some advice for step parents, but for you, you have a daughter, she's 4 year old. Would
Yeah.
you like to share maybe some other advice? I mean, you've already shared some as we're talking, but would you like to share some other advice for some moms? I have some friends with young children who are 1, 2 years old, little girls right now. So, what are maybe some mom tidbits that you'd like to share?
I don't know. She teaches me patience, that's for sure. She's like the Lord's lesson to me. My lesson to her is like, whatever you do, do with class. Like,
Mm.
I want her to follow her dreams. I want her to make her own decisions, just know the consequences when going into things so she can make educated decisions. So I think just giving our kids as much information as we can, be open with them when they have questions, answer them the best we can, and just let them learn, learn things for themselves, be there for them when they fall, and just try to be just that support system for them. I feel like I'm kind of a helicopter parent and I'm trying so hard not to be. I just like want her to be safe all the time. And like I know at some point she's gonna like fall and get hurt and all these other things. And it's just letting go is hard. It's so hard. So I'm also learning myself to just be there for her as much as possible, answer as many questions, but also let her make her own decisions and just be there for how those decisions come out.
I love that though, because we're all human beings. We grow. That's what we do. That's how we're meant. We're grow, and giving that time and space to learn, but being there to have those conversations. Because I think that's something in the suicide prevention world is that we aren't willing to have the tough conversations.
Right.
And unfortunately, suicide is it kind of bounces year to year, but it's usually about the second leading cause of death from ages 10 to 34.
Yeah.
And I have a few friends who have young children who are preteens who would rather be dead than alive. And those are tough conversations. There's tough conversations. Maybe a kid comes home from school and says, hey, I have this kid in my class that every day at lunch they're sitting there and they're not eating. Those are tough conversations to navigate too when they see somebody else suffering. So I think
Yeah.
that's a really important lesson for a lot of parents is you got to be willing to have the tough conversations and educate them and just support them because we're all going to fall at times. We all need our support systems and that goes for us as parents too, right? Also having support systems we can rely on when we fall through this crazy thing that's called life.
Yeah. And I think like parents as well, like they're going through so many things. So just making sure they get the help they need so they're not in like not intentionally like putting it on their kids, like getting frustrated with them or crying, like I don't know, but like don't want to put any baggage you have on your kids. Like they're innocent and just trying to play and have fun. Like you want to make sure you're showing up the best you can for them. I went to a leadership summit earlier this year and we did an exercise and it was pretty much like every day how you show up to each person, you're giving them a live or a die. And
Mhm.
it's just like when you're ignoring them, when you're being rude to them, like you're pretty much giving them like just die, just like leave me alone versus a live, just saying like, how are you? Just like acknowledging them, answering their questions, giving them that live to be a part of your life. Like I know that doesn't really make sense because like it's not like the whole exercise, but just like every time you speak to someone and how you show up is important. You don't know how that person is taking it in. And especially like a kid, how they're taking it in. Like you saying, like, leave me alone, I'm on the phone, I'm working, like that affects your kids. So just trying to keep that separate, like show up for your kid, keep your personal things to yourself, get the help that you need so you're not putting it on them.
That's something that I think a lot of people having that self-realization and
Mm-hmm.
recognizing our own actions. I say this all the time, the best thing we can do is validate instead of relating, but when it
Yeah.
comes to kids, we miss the part that they're kid probs, but
Mm-hmm.
that is their world.
Right.
Right? I remember coming home from school like devastated. I didn't have friends, crying, nobody likes me, nobody wants to play with me on the playground, that kind of thing. And my mom thinking, this this is your biggest concern, and her trying to comfort me all the time and the best that she could in that moment. And as we grow, right, recognizing that and saying my mom was doing the best job she could with what she had and in that moment, also giving ourselves that grace. But if we can, taking that recognition and saying, hey, these are kid probs. They're having like the worst day. We need to take a step back and just validate that that's their worst day.
Yeah,
Okay, now how can we move on from here?
yeah. Like my daughter's 4. She has the smallest of problems, but I still want her to be heard. I
Yeah.
want her to know that it's okay, that we can get a different crayon, that it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, she is gonna cry, and like no one wants that.
Yeah. That's definitely something that I think that's the great like simple analogy. Like that crown's broke, we'll get another one. It's
Yeah.
okay. Like this is big in this moment, but we
Hmm.
can fix it and make it feel smaller later.
Yeah. The
So,
tower filled over, we can rebuild it.
yeah.
Yeah. Like I only know so much because my daughter's only 4. Like I'm sure there's bigger and more serious problems as kids get older that parents are dealing with, and they just have to communicate with their kid, listen to their kid so that their kid will come to them when they have these issues and let you help.
And that's where it starts though, right? It starts at a younger age, is building those relationships, is building that trust and that
Yeah.
openness in the conversations. So I think that that's a lesson for all of us in any relationship, right?
Yeah. For step parents, I can't even imagine. I feel like that's even harder. I feel like guys are godsends. To take someone else's child and raise them is just your angels.
It is definitely challenging. I think all of us thus far have kind of agreed that it's you're having to take the values and beliefs of your spouse, but also the values and beliefs of the child's birth mother, and then potentially another step parent,
Right.
figuring
Yeah.
out how do you navigate this and where's your boundaries, both
Hmm.
legally and within the family structure and dynamics that makes things a little bit more complicated. But even for married couples, right? Like you have your values and beliefs, and your husband has his values and beliefs, and you're raising a child together. And I'm sure sometimes those values and beliefs don't line up because we're humans, we're not clones.
Right.
So those things might look a little differently.
Yeah, it's all a balancing game. And I just think communication is just like the biggest thing. Just talk it out, find a compromise.
My husband would always say, he'd say, compromise means nobody gets what they want. So I laugh.
No.
I'm like, but that doesn't mean you can't make an effort. You can't try. You can still
Yeah.
validate both sides, right? And you can talk
Definitely.
through it and find how can we make things work going forward. Well, we've chatted a little bit about this and a little bit about that, and I want to make sure that our listeners really take away some of those key important things that we've talked about today. So I'd love to turn it over to you to kind of remind our listeners what are those key things and some ways that they can help. And of course, we'll have contacts and such in the description below. So I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So my platform is fighting food insecurity. Food insecurity is not only the lack of food, but also the lack of nutritious food. Affects 1 in 7 people. So you may know somebody. Things that you can do is give your time by just volunteering at local food banks, food pantries, things like that. You can also donate items that you already have in your pantries or like around your house. I know they take some household items as well. Just things that you already have that you're not going to use, somebody else can put to good use. If you do have the financial resources, then you can give money to those or give it to schools for overdue lunch balances. And then simply just like making a meal, sharing it with friends. There could be people in your life you have no idea that suffer from food insecurity, and just sharing a good meal can go a long way. I know easy things like chili, pasta dishes, Thanksgiving's coming up, just inviting people over. Um, I think that's a great way to just make sure the people around you are being taken care of.
That's amazing. I love all the work you're doing, and I love how much you share all over social media and the efforts that you're putting in. So here's to bringing home that Gold Presidential Service Award because I know you put in the hours with all that you do in your community. I want to thank you for your time, also your willingness to come on here and your openness to have this conversation with us today.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll share some links with you. That way you can share them with everybody else and just help impact our communities.
Sounds like a great plan. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it with someone you never know who needs more light in their life. May this serve as a reminder that there's always darkness in the world. Do not let it consume you. Always seek the light. Please take a moment to do the good old subscribe, rate, and review. Your support means so much to me, and it helps me spread more light and love. Until next time, be kind, be loving, be human, and don't ever let anyone steal your hope.